السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعزائي طلاب الفرقة الرابعة شعبة الأدب الإنجليزي بالكلية. يا رب تكونوا بخير. معاكم دكتور مجدي جمعة مدرس مادة الشعر. Today we are gonna discuss a very important lecture under the title Raine's Martian Poetry. First, I remind you of the topics we have studied this semester. First, we studied a survey of the main poetic movements that the 20th century English poetry has witnessed. Second, we discussed the major trends of modern English poetry. Third, we studied the first poem in our curriculum under the title When You Are Old by William Butler Yeats. Today we will discuss our fourth topic under the title Raine's Martian Poetry. You will find this topic in your book on page 83 until page 99. By the end of this lecture, you are supposed to have an idea about number 1, the Martian School of Poetry. Number 2, the main features of Martian poetry. Number 3, an introduction to our second poem, A Martian Sends a Postcard Home. Raine's Martian Poetry. The question now is, what is Martian poetry? Martian poetry has another name, which is Martianism. So, what is Martianism? Martianism, or the so-called Martian School of Poetry, is a short-lived but influential literary movement which dominated the poetic scene during the late 1970s and early 1980s, particularly from 1977 to 1984. It was James Fenton, another Martian poet, who gave the school its name in his 1978 New Statesman article entitled Of the Martian School, a year after the publication of Raine's poem A Martian Sends a Postcard Home in 1977. شباب بس معلش هدخل داخله حته بالعربي كده عشان الناس بس تفهم ان مارشنزم لو جينا هنترجمها المريخيه، ومارشان سكول اوف بوتري المدرسة المريخية في الشعر. هذه المدرسة as its title suggests, Martianism is related to Mars المريخ. حركة جديدة في الشعر ظهرت في أواخر السبعينات من القرن الماضي وأوائل الثمانينات. عمرها الافتراضي 7 سنوات من 1977 to 1984. الهدف منها هي قراءة العالم حولنا بعيون رجل المريخ. الأشياء التي حولنا تقرأ من وجهة نظر رجل المريخ. لك أن تتخيل, imagine that a human being from Mars comes to our planet Earth, شخص من المريخ جاء إلى كوكبنا, and sees our daily objects, الحاجات اللي هي familiar to us, for the first time, and he would like to send a postcard home, عايز يبعت بطاقة بريدية, and write in it, ويكتب فيها the descriptions of our daily objects. لك أن تتخيل وصفه للأشياء حولنا ماذا ستكون؟ بالفعل ستكون strange, amazing, from his viewpoint, from his point of view. هيبدأ يصف أشياء غريبة. هذه الأشياء قد تبدو لنا humorous, amusing بالفعل. فهذه المدرسة المريخية from its title, the title here is strange, appears strange indeed. Martian poetry employs exotic, metaphors, and strange similes for our daily objects. The aim is to make them seem fresh, newly discovered, and sometimes humorous. Let's go on reading. Perhaps the key characteristic of Martian poetry is its tendency to transform everyday objects in a ludic form of defamiliarization. Stop. The word defamiliarization here, what does it mean? If I ask you to translate this word, لو حبيت أقول لك ترجم لي the word defamiliarization, what will you say? defamiliarization لو حبينا نترجمها يا شباب معناها تغريب المألوف. تغريب المألوف، أن تجعل من المألوف غريبا. In English, to make the familiar strange. This term is coined by a Russian formalist called Victor Shklovsky. راجل كده اسمه فيكتور شكلوفسكي هو اللي coined this term. Through the intense use of extended metaphors and exotic similes, aiming at making the familiar seem fresh, newly discovered, and sometimes humorous. Okay? Being the progenitor of Martianism, Raine, so the leading figure of the Martian school of poetry is Raine. Raine is considered an influential new poet who has brought a sense of vitality to British poetry during the late 1970s and the early 1980s by leading the so-called Martian school of poetry. In addition, Raine is said to be one of the poets who seeks to achieve a radical change in the themes, objectives, and methods of English poetry. At first reading, his poetry appears complex. بالفعل وده اللي هنشوفه in Martian poetry at first reading it appears complex, with his poems as riddles to which readers are invited to find answers. However, the reader finds much fun in figuring out such puzzles as they confuse before they enliven. For them to be comprehended, Raine's poems demand a second and third reading. To clarify, Raine's vague way of writing gradually becomes more evident and understandable through repeated readings to disclose a kind of poetry which addresses our familiar world, but from what Victor Shklovsky has called defamiliarization, or the technique of making the familiar strange. Regarding the poetic form, here we are gonna talk about the style, the form of Martian poetry. I'd like to say that Martian poetry is written in unrhymed couplets. And the question now is, why the unrhymed couplets? Okay, the motive behind Raine's preference to compose such poems in unrhymed couplets is the space and flexibility the couplet provides to include a wide range of subject matter. For Raine, the writer in general should be able to express himself easily, naturally, copiously, in a form which frees his mind and his energies. Now we are gonna discuss the features of Martian poetry. Martian poetry in general, and Raine's in particular, seeks to mystify. What does mystify mean? Mystify mean puzzle, perplex, confuse, and disorient the reader by defamiliarizing everyday objects as if they are being seen for the first time. So, our daily objects will be described as if they were being seen for the first time, and this will be given from the eyes of the Martian. In other words, Martian poetry tends to reread, redescribe our daily objects and events through aliens' eyes. The alien here is represented in the Martian who visits our planet Earth and wants to send a postcard home from an alien location Earth to his fellow Martians. in which he describes what he encounters from his own perspective. Undoubtedly, his descriptions come to be more outrageous and far-fetched. Outrageous here means bizarre, means strange. Therefore, Martian poetry, especially that of Raine, can be a flash enactment of the familiarization, as we have said, or the technique of making the familiar strange, first coined by Russian. Okay. Now, let's turn to the next page. In a Martian sense, a postcard home, this is, inshallah, our first or our second poem in our curriculum. دي إن شاء الله القصيدة الثانية اللي هندرسها by Raine. In this poem, Raine, إن شاء الله هندرسها in the next video بإذن الله. Raine employs a number of riddles to show what the Martian encounters on his visit to Earth. A Martian sends a postcard home. In this poem, a Martian visits our planet Earth and tries to write about what he sees on Earth to his fellow Martians. Okay? For example, books are described by the Martian as cackstones, which are mechanical birds. So books are likened to cackstones, are compared to birds. Yani, this is an extended metaphor. This is an extended metaphor of the word box. Cackstones, which are mechanical birds with many wings. Here we notice that Raine uses a mixed metaphor in the sense that he describes books as cackstones in complete reference to William Caxton, the first English printer of books. Then cackstones are depicted as mechanical birds with many wings. Wings here refers to the pages of the book. The pages of the book. Okay? In his Martian poetry, Raine adopts a number of methods to best convey his message of reviving the ordinary. Here, Raine, or the Martian, enacts a method of defamiliarization in contrast to habitualization. The word habitualization is the opposite of the word defamiliarization, which dulls one's experience of life. A method of Raine compares to a child's distorted perspective. Methods of depicting and perceiving quotidian objects. Quotidian means familiar. Quotidian means familiar. Methods of recreating the world through figurative expression. Recreating means reading the world through figurative expression. Methods of representing personal and social alienation, and methods of approaching the world from a new perspective. Moreover, the Martian poetry of Raine best illustrates the motif of alienation, but alienation of what? The alienation here portrayed in most of Raine's poetry, especially in his second volume of Martian Since Postcard Home, can be a symbol of the alienation experienced by the modern man who suffers from an identity crisis in a morally disintegrated society. On the other hand, such alienation can be a symbol of the marginalization and neglect suffered by the Martian poets who feel, I'd like to say that the Martian poets such as Raine, James Fenton, and Kingsley Martin Amis, yes, these poets, or those poets, feel aliens due to the main reasons as shown in chapter 3. The fragmentation of the political consensus in Britain during the late 1970s. Let's turn to the next page. Now, inshallah, you will be introduced to your second poem in your syllabus or curriculum. القصيدة اسمها A Martian Since Postcard Home. لو حبينا نترجمها نقول رجل المريخ يبعث ببطاقة بريدية إلى وطنه، إلى المريخ. يا ترى هيشوف الأشياء إزاي؟ خلينا نقرأ وهنقرأ القصيدة ونشوف إن شاء الله تحضروها المرة القادمة بإذن الله. Cackstones are mechanical birds with many wings, and some are treasured for their markings. They cause the eyes to melt, or the body to shriek without pain. I have never seen one fly, but sometimes they perch on the hand. Mist is when the sky is tired of light and rests its soft machine on ground. Then the world is dim and bookish, like engravings under tissue paper. Rain is when the earth is television. It has the property of making colors darker. Model T, the room with the lock inside. A key is turned to free the world. For movement so quick, there is a film to watch for anything missed. But time is tied to the wrist, or kept in a box, ticking with impatience. In homes a haunted apparatus sleeps, that snores when you pick it up. If the ghost cries, they carry it to their lips and soothe it to sleep with sounds, and yet they wake it up deliberately by tickling with a finger. Only the young are allowed to suffer openly. Adults go to a punishment room with water but nothing to eat. They lock the door and suffer the noises alone. No one is exempt, and everyone's pain has a different smell. Night, when all colors die, they hide in pairs. Finally, in this lecture, we have come to the following findings, Shabab. Martianism, or the so-called Martian school of poetry, is a short-lived but influential literary movement that has arisen in opposition to the movement school, whose poetry focuses attention on the familiarity of the familiar. Number two, the most conspicuous feature of Martian poetry is its tendency to transform everyday objects in a ludic form of defamiliarization through the intense use of extended metaphors and exotic similes, aiming at making the familiar seem fresh, newly discovered, and sometimes humorous. Raine is an influential new poet who has brought a sense of vitality and freshness to British poetry during the late 1970s and early 1980s by leading the so-called Martian school of poetry. Raine's poetic style exerted a profound influence on a number of British poets such as Christopher Wren and Martin Amis, who felt themselves aliens in English poetry. Raine's Martian poetry can be counted postmodern in the sense that it shows its preference for metaphor and poetic bizarreness to metonymy and plain speech, besides its renewed interest in narrative. Okay, معلش number 6 كده, we can skip it. Okay. Raine's Martial sense of postcard home is the best to exemplify such ideas of alienation and communication. Last but not least, Raine's motive behind the Martian poetry is to make us see ourselves the same way as others see us. He also wants us to recognize the strangeness of human actions removed from their context. Okay. Thank you. This is Raine's photo. Thank you for listening. أشوفكم في فيديو قادم. وفقكم الله شباب. السلام عليكم.